Hey y'all, and welcome to Ile Adura. I'll be your host, Adurag by me, and today we will be talking about standing up to controlling parents. Let's get into it. Another banger. So, backstory. I grew up in a household where one parent was very narcissistic and abusive, and the other was more loving but also very controlling. So, due to the abuse, the lack of autonomy, and the feeling that my every desire and very breath were stifled, I decided I was going to move on out. When I finally made the decision to do so, it did come with a lot of backlash. I'm Nigerian. I was 22 years old. In traditional Nigerian culture, our parents have this thing where they expect us as daughters to move right from our father's house into our husband's house. So the fact that I wanted to move out on my own was made into a really big deal. Because of everything that was going on, the backlash, and because standing up to my parents was new for me, literally, I grew up doing whatever it is that they wanted me to do and hiding the rest. I would literally be on YouTube looking up standing up to African parents, standing up to Nigerian parents, standing up to controlling parents. Unfortunately, I didn't find much from the Nigerian perspective or African diaspora. I probably found like 3 serious videos, and the rest were just jokes and parodies and things of that nature. That's actually what inspired this channel in the first place, so it only feels right that I take some time to talk to y'all about the very things I needed to hear at that time. Standing up to controlling parents for me does not have to mean putting up some big fight or anything like that, although their reaction and your own inner turmoil while you're going through it might make it feel like that. To me, standing up for yourself and to your parents simply means using your God-given autonomy to live in a way that is healthy, peaceful, and pleasant for you, regardless of what your controlling parents or overbearing culture have to say about it. Dig this. Claiming independence and becoming more free or autonomous as you grow is actually meant to be a normal part of life. I know growing up in a Nigerian household, I would hear things like, oh, so you think you're grown now, you think you have grown wings. But in reality, that's actually healthy. As you get older, you're supposed to recognize that you're growing. You're supposed to want to fly. But if you're dealing with controlling parents, especially those who are enabled by their culture, you are often villainized for it, and it can feel like all out warfare. So, I'm just here to offer some advice on how to navigate the minefield so that you can live your life and breathe your air of freedom. Know what you stand for. I'm telling you right now, if you do not stand 10 toes down for something, you will fall for everything. The truth about controlling parents, especially when backed up by community and culture that enables their controlling ways, is that they know exactly what they want and they know what they want for you. You must also know exactly what you want for you, and you must be willing to stand up for it no matter who disagrees. Make yourself clear. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. The Bible actually says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. And I learned in therapy that applies to so much more than just answering truthfully when you're asked a question. Stop saying yes to things that hurt you because it'll appease somebody else. Stop saying no to the things that you want in life because somebody else doesn't want it for you too. I betrayed myself so many times trying to appease the adults in my life, even when it caused my detriment. I need you to know that telling the truth, aka letting your yes be yes and your no be no, is a holy thing. Don't let anybody make you feel like telling the truth is a bad thing. What's bad, honestly, is what I did for years, saying yes when I wanted to say no and no when I wanted to say yes, all in the name of keeping the peace and being respectful. That not only hurts you, but will most likely lead to resentment of the other person. So my advice is to say exactly what you need when the situation calls for it. One thing that does make me cringe is how often I was silent or would be around the bush due to fear of someone else's reaction to what I had to say. As a Nigerian, being direct is often considered disrespectful, especially when you're talking to someone much older than you. But like Zora Neale Hurston said, if you are silent about your pain, they will kill you and said that you enjoyed it. Dramatic? I think not. Recognize that what you say will not always be taken how you mean it. Even when you think you're being polite, be prepared for what you say to be twisted into the most thwarted and outrageous thing ever. Be ready to be shamed and guilted for making your thoughts known. Be ready to hear how evil and disrespectful you are. Be ready to have random people calling you talking about, how could you talk to your mother and your father like that? So forth and so on. But for your own sake, and please, apply wisdom, use sense, yeah? When the situation calls for it, say exactly what you mean. And who knows, maybe what you say will be received exactly how you meant it and peace will reign. I'm just saying, be mentally prepared for the fact that it might not be. Irregardless, do not let their offense, refusal to understand you, or their decision to misunderstand you cause you to minimize or deny the truth of the situation. Don't let their reaction make or break you. This was probably the hardest part for me growing up and finding my voice, aka standing my ground. There are a number of different reactions that can come when you stand up for yourself, no matter how respectful you are. There is the possibility of them agreeing with you or understanding your point of view, but what about when they don't? For me and many others, the fear of confrontation or standing up for yourself comes from the fear of physical or verbal retaliation. So when it comes to verbal retaliation, you know who you're dealing with, you know who you're talking to. So if having a conversation is an option, do that. That's great. Even if the conversation gets a little heated, it's still healthy if you're both being heard. But in a case where it's too volatile, one-sided, and possibly unsafe, arguing and going back and forth will do nothing but exasperate you. If you're in a space where you can walk away from that, do that. You want to protect your peace. I know that's not an option for everyone though. For me, I knew my walking away would not only be viewed as disrespectful, but depending on who I was dealing with, I knew it would likely quickly escalate to physical retaliation. So if you're not in a space where you can walk away, you'll need to manage to find a way to let it in one ear and out the other. I know that's not easy, believe me. I've been there and I'm sensitive. So for someone to tell me to let it in out one in one, and for someone to tell me let it in one ear and out the other, it just wasn't giving. But you are going to have to find a peaceful space within yourself in that moment to get through. Now, you do need to process it afterwards, and we'll talk about that later. Now, when it comes to physical retaliation, I'm gonna try not to get too hyped because this is my stance. Nobody should be putting their big bone body hands on you, you feel me? Because one thing about me, I'm gonna call the cops. You want to fight with somebody, you can fight with the law. It's not going to be me. That's just how I feel about it. Now, I'm not going to lie, because I know it's taboo. In certain cultures, such as the one that I grew up in, you have to be mad or just angry to call the cops just because your parents or your guardian or whoever put their hands on you. Well, I'm telling you to call and report them because your safety and your well-being come first. Okay, so say you've gotten past the verbal and physical retaliation and now other tactics are being implemented. There's manipulation tactics, being iced out from the family, being guilted or shamed, just so many things they can do or say to make you anxious and feel more distressed when you're trying to stand up for yourself. The main thing that I see is emotional manipulation that follows when the outbursts and the threats and all of the retaliation don't work initially. The gaslighting, the guilt tripping, the how could you do this to me? How could you do this to the family? When in reality, you're not doing anything to anyone but trying to live your life in a way that works for you and brings you peace. I need you to know that you do not have to defend yourself. Believe it or not, you can state your case, but it's not your responsibility to make someone who doesn't want to understand you understand you. You also don't need to convince anybody that your expressions or your decisions are valid. Trying to do so takes time and energy that can be better spent taking steps to achieve what you want for your life and even following God's path for your life. Of course, I'm not about to act like emotions don't exist. You want to make them see. You want to make them understand, but don't let what they say or what they do deter you is my point. Because remember, you know what you're standing for. Oh yeah. Let's take a moment to talk about religious manipulation. So, if you've been properly brainwashed by your controlling parents, yeah? Growing up, you might feel like if you do something that your parents or the community that they raised you in don't approve of, such as expressing yourself in a certain way, choosing a certain career path, or making any major life decisions, that God is automatically going to depart from you or see you as less or see you as disobedient or rebellious, because they love that word. Rebellion is close to witchcraft and all of that stuff. And the word does say that, but standing up for your God-given right to live your life and make decisions with the autonomy God has given you is not rebellion, friend. The gag is, what some people call rebellion, God has actually called his will for your life. My own personal experience when I moved out, I was called all kinds of things. I was called rebellious, I was called demonic, so forth and so on, all because I didn't want to stay in an environment that was literally harmful to me. And those things that were being said to me and that I know are being said to others who are standing up for themselves could not have been further from the truth. In actuality, God needed me to take that step so that he could do more in my life. I was able to get the mental health help that I needed and start going to counseling. I was able to create and maintain healthy relationships, something that I couldn't do when I lived with my parents. I was able to go out and about. Listen, I was able to go to the church that I wanted to go to and actually grow spiritually, finally. And most importantly, I became myself. And I remember telling one of my parents before I moved out, I was like, I feel like when I move out of your house is when I'm going to finally get to find myself. And they were like, what is there that you're going to find out there that you can't find in here? A lot, friend, a lot. It actually turned out to be more than I could have even imagined. There is such a bright world out there that is ours for the taking, and sometimes you do have to do the very opposite of what others expect from you in order to attain it. And let me say it like this. Your parents, they're not God. Believe it or not, and don't fight me because I know how the religious folk like to tussle. But hear me when I say that you do not need their approval or their blessing for you to know whether or not you're in line with God's will for your life. For some reason, in the back of my mind when I was moving out, I thought that if I did the things that my parents didn't want me to do, that somehow God would depart from me and I would just feel horribly. Because that's what they make it seem like. Like if I wasn't in their will for my life, then I wasn't in God's will. That is a tactic that a lot of the religious and controlling use. This is why you have to have your own relationship with God and hear Him for yourself, so that people can't swindle you any which way and call it God. When you know Him for yourself, it'll be a lot harder for people to get over on you or control you in that way. Sometimes God actually has the green light on for you, but your parents have made you so afraid to do stuff outside of their will that you're just afraid to go. But in reality, we do not live for them, despite what they may have told you. We were put on this world for God to please Him. Sometimes the things that are pleasing to Him and that are for us do go against what others so strongly hold on to. Now, I'm not saying that you should go out there and be doing gra-gra. I'm not saying that you should throw wisdom out the window and be acting anyhow. I'm not saying that you should abandon counsel, yeah? In fact, I'm saying that you should seek wise counsel, seek unbiased counsel, seek godly counsel. And counsel is a guiding thing, not a thing that seeks to control. And I'm not saying that your parents aren't wise. I'm not saying that they're not godly. But sometimes when people mix their need for control with religion, sometimes they do things that aren't godly. They do things that aren't wise. So if you want counsel for real, talk to people who are in positions that you would love to be in. People who have exhibited and attained freedom despite their circumstance. That's wise counsel. People who fear God, not people who manipulate His word and scripture to control other people. Because yeah, the word does say in a multitude of counselors there is safety. But your parents telling you what to do is not a multitude of counselors. It's your parents telling you what to do. So in order to stand up to controlling parents, it helps to recognize that you can hear God for yourself and that you are smart enough to make your own decision. Do it scared and make it the norm. You might recognize that you're smart enough, but you might not necessarily feel like you're brave enough. Sometimes you have to do it afraid. You know, there is a possibility of failure. There is a possibility of being wrong. But that's exactly why you need to put yourself in positions that will decrease the risk of you and me falling on our faces. So for me, I went to nursing school. Typical Nigerian babe, yeah. I wasn't completely convinced that's what I wanted to do in my life, but I figured that it would help me make money so I could get out that house. When I became a nurse, I saved up to the point where I knew I would be okay. More importantly than the saving, I had a plan. Have a plan, have a plan, have a plan. So I was really big on saving. I wanted to be so good financially that when I moved out, I would never, ever have to come back. And that's not to say that you absolutely have to move out. That's just what it was for me. But yeah, I was fighting for my independence, so I needed to be independent. I needed to be able to stand on my own. I actually find a lot of people don't end up being able to stand up to their parents because to some degree, they do still depend on them or heavily rely on them. And there's no shame in that. It's unfortunate because you're supposed to be able to depend on your parents to a certain extent, but sometimes you will have to stand on your own. Stand for what you want, even if you have to stand alone. So if you're going to stand up to controlling parents, you have to be prepared for the possibility that you may have to stand on your own. There are parents who will still support you if you choose to live a life different from the one that they have planned for you. But we're talking about controlling parents, so we're talking about the ones that will not. If your parents are like that, be prepared. Take the steps to ensure that you're going to be okay mentally, financially, and emotionally. Part of that is getting help. So if this video applies to you or your situation and you find yourself resonating with a lot of what I said, you probably also need a safe space to process your thoughts, your emotions, and just everything that you've been through growing up in that household. It would benefit you to speak with an unbiased and educated party to do that. A therapist. As strong as people think that I am now, as confident as I present to be, it took me over 3 years of therapy and I'm still going to get to this point. All the mental breakdowns that I had in between it, don't go through that by yourself. If you can't afford therapy at this juncture, at least try to surround yourself with people who are good for your heart and your mind. Whether that's friends, church community, mentors, whatever, just people who are good for you. Even if you don't feel like the list is as long as you would like it to be, at least don't allow people who hurt your heart and mind around you while you're going through this process. Because this one is the serious matter, okay? You must protect your peace. What did I say? Protect your peace. So you have to determine, what does that mean for you? For me, that meant choosing myself and prioritizing my safety and well-being even if no one else did. To this day, it means not engaging in unhealthy relationships or even entertaining conversation with people who are hell-bent on misunderstanding or hurting me. You have to know what brings you peace and take the steps to protect that peace, regardless of how others will feel about it. Boundaries, baby, boundaries. Standing up for yourself is not a one and done thing, let me tell you what. If you choose to maintain relationship with your controlling parents, in order for you to maintain your sanity and freedom that you work so hard for, you'll have to put boundaries in place and maintain them. You do got to maintain boundaries with these people because they will spin the block on you and find another way to control you if they can. So it's up to you to reinforce what you said, reinforce your boundaries, and tell them that you meant what you said when you said it, and you meant what you did when you did it. I want you to know that you deserve to live a life of autonomy and freedom. You deserve to create a life for yourself that you view as worth living. And you don't need man's approval to do so. Not your mamas, not your pastors, not your daddies, not your boyfriends, not nobody's, okay? Definitely not your miserable little aunties. I do hope that these suggestions have helped you in navigating how to go about it. It is a process and it's definitely not an easy one, but it's so worth it when you do it. Talk to me though. Have you had to stand up to a controlling parent? What did your process look like? How are you healing? Because you know you got to heal from that. How are you recovering? How are you growing? How are you becoming? Comment down below to help people going through that season right now. Let them know that it can be done. And if you are going through it right now, please know that this is meant to be a community. I don't want to just sit here and talk. I want you to share your process down below and see who else's advice you may benefit from. But I'll see y'all next time on Ile Adira.